Time to go live.
Time to go
Good morning,
live.
everyone.
Good
6
morning.
a.m. Eastern Time on the 3rd of November, 2025.
And it's still 5 a.m. somewhere.
Yeah.
5 a.m. live. Nick Compton, how you doing?
Good to see you, Doc.
Good to see you. Good to be seen. Not viewed yet.
So we're going to be talking to Nick Compton. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. And hash KMT for a chance to win what, Alia?
A t-shirt.
A
Like Kilt's Mighty
t-shirt.
Tribe t-shirts. Such as this. It could be a different color.
And Nick, where are you in this world right now?
I'm in Cape Town, South Africa.
Nice.
Have you
What's
been?
time? So it's a little later there, right?
Yeah, it's 1 o'clock, lunchtime. So yeah, and I was just saying, it's blue sky, hot weather, summer's coming.
Yeah. And we got winter coming here in the States and many other places around the northern hemisphere.
I was just in London for the last 6 months, so I got out at a good time. I timed it perfectly, I think.
Well, I go from upstate New York to Sarasota, Florida, so I go south for the winter time. It's still it's nice wherever you're at. I love snow. I love the seasons, and I love the Dodgers.
2 in a row, huh?
Yeah, 2 in a row. But well, just the most important thing is to play the game. Win or lose, play. Get up and show up. It's all it takes. That's what Dr. Nelson Alia and Kilt's practice doing as many days as we can. Do you want to lead it off, Dr. Nelson?
Yeah, sure. But do we have any announcements, Alia? Do we have anything coming up next week?
Let's see what's happening next week. I think it's Hack Your Health.
Yes.
That's next week. Yeah, exactly.
And we have something on that Friday.
Yeah, so I'm going to put that link in the chat right now. So we're going to have dinner on the 11th.
14th.
The month is 11. On the 14th of November at Terra de Gaucho in Tampa, Florida. It's 12 minutes away from Hack Your Health. Just sign up for the RSVP because I got a call today. The manager, she's expecting my call to set up all the chairs that we need. So please sign up, seats.
And please show up.
Oh, and please show
sign
up.
up
Yeah,
and show up.
Sign up and
we're,
show up.
We're relying on you showing up with cash in hand so Dr. Nelson doesn't have to pay the entire bill. Or is it killed?
Exactly.
No,
it's not like Dr. Kilt's. They're reserving a room for us, and we're reserving it based on the Kilt's health staff. So I'm paying for our staff, but everybody else is good. But yeah, show up. We want to have fun. We have room for 100 people. So
we're making reservations for 100 people.
Yeah.
Yes. Sign up, show up, cash up. But it's supposed to be a carnivore community, and we're here as lions. And Nick's here, a pro athlete, cricketer, former, but I think he probably has some good energy even today. And Dr. Nelson, you want to hit it off?
Yeah, one more thing. Zoom call tonight at 5:30 Eastern.
And
okay?
I'm traveling, and I may not make it because I'll be in the air today.
Okay. We'll be there.
DC will be there. We'll be there in DC speaking about breath work and ice baths. So be there.
All right. So Nick, thank you for being here this morning. And we're going to let you give us a little bit of background on you, who you are, what you do, and how you ended up talking about carnivore here.
Great. Well, yeah, firstly, thanks very much for having me on. I'm sitting here in Cape Town. It's hot and warm. I've been in the UK for the last 6 months, so I've escaped at a good time. But I grew up in South Africa to a very sort of sport-mad family. I had a famous grandfather who played cricket for England. So to Americans who are listening, cricket's very similar to baseball. It's Yeah, it's a very similar sport, and most people find it quite confusing. But it's played all around the world, mainly in India, Pakistan, these sort of countries that are absolutely sport mad, or cricket mad, should I say? So I had this like legacy, this family legacy, which was at the forefront of my mind since I was a young boy, and I always wanted to be a great sort of cricketer one day, like my grandfather was. And I eventually got a scholarship to go overseas to England. To follow in his footsteps in a way. And yeah, I became a professional at the age of 17 in my last year of school, and did that for sort of 20 years. Ended up playing for England and reaching that sort of milestone, that dream. But what probably wasn't without its sort of bumps and bruises along the way. And I think growing up in South Africa and leaving home at that young age really challenged me, I think, emotionally more than anything. To be away from family for that length of time. They remained here in South Africa, and that's partly why I'm sort of back here now, I think, is, I'm trying to get back to family and what have you as they get a bit older. But in a nutshell, I had a real battle with mental health. I think from a very young age, I probably didn't understand it as well as I would have liked at that age. I was, emotional, and really struggled with anxiety in quite a paralyzing way. And I think at the time, I was always putting a plaster on it, trying to get through the next, stage, or whether it be leaving home, going overseas, playing, competitive sport at a very young age, and playing it, to quite a high degree, and then becoming a professional at a young age, and sort of learning the ropes, and the insights into what it meant to be a professional. And of course, that was a journey of itself. So I think anxiety, paralyzing anxiety, and then depression became pretty much a part of my story, so much so that I wrote a book 2 years ago, which was nominated for Sports Book of the Year award in the UK. And I opened up quite openly about depression and anxiety, and some of the struggles that not just me, but obviously many sportsmen and athletes have obviously opened up more about in the recent past, more so. And I just think, it's something that baffled me for years, because I'd seen many psychiatrists, psychologists, and probably lost faith and trust in sort of modern medicine, if you want to put it that way. I was on antidepressants for almost 25 years of my life. So I got given them at the age of 13. And when I look back, I sort of think to myself, wow, that is quite a young age to be given a young boy, sort of antidepressants like that every single day, SSRI. And I was on it, and it almost became more difficult to come off it, to be honest with you. And there was never a good time. I kept thinking, God, I want to get off this stuff. I need to get off this stuff. And every time I tried, there was another season coming around, or another, big thing, which meant it made it very difficult. But obviously I say stumbled, I always thought I ate well. I always thought my diet was good. As an athlete, we have these smoothies, and you wake up and you eat all the stuff that mum and dad sort of taught you to eat. But it's taken a lot of unlearning, I would say. I think there's been a big unlearning process, a lot of reading, a lot of trying it out, obviously. So I've been on sort of a carnivore keto diet probably for about a year now.
Do you think that our diets, it's sort of a double-edged sword, where the sugars of a tremendous amount of products with a lot of sugars kind of made us feel good, and then it made us feel bad, and so there was that up and down, and then we're given the diagnosis, and we're on these medications because we're in a world of medications, right? And
yeah. Well, no, 100%. I think really to go into that subject, I mean, I'm not here to blame my parents. Of course, they're a sort of middle-class family who, did what they thought was right. But when I look back at what I was eating before school at lunchtimes, I mean, it almost makes me shiver now. The French toast with maple syrup, the porridges, the cereals, and I was a family that probably ate quite well. You know what I mean? You think about some of the boys there with their chocolate bars every day. I mean, I had no idea. I mean, of course, you don't have any idea at that age. And, I suppose you then, and the crashes I had at school. I mean, I could hardly stay awake in class, and I kept going home and thinking, what's wrong with me? Like, the other boys seem to be okay. Why am I literally wanting to just lie down on the floor and just have a snooze for an hour? And this was pretty much my whole childhood and even early adult life, even as a pro athlete. I mean, the diets, the dietitians that we saw, I look back at some of the information we got there. I mean, even that was flawed. And look, it's difficult having these conversations because I can't speak for everyone. It isn't, everyone's got their own individual story, and I suppose feels differently when and in terms of the way they process different foods. But for me, any heavy carbs, pastas, rice, I'm almost, I need to go to sleep for 3 hours in the afternoon. I can't sort of function, that's how bad it was. And so I suppose the brain fog and trying to perform at an elite level and fighting that was a huge issue. And I never really got down to the bottom of it until sort of, say, a year and a half ago.
So how long after you changed your diet did you notice any benefits regarding the depression?
Yeah, I would say quite instantaneously. I would say probably, within 4 weeks to 6 weeks. It was hard to put my finger on it because I think the change itself, the discipline was very tough. I won't lie. I found it very, very difficult. The cravings, the lifestyle that I built, I'm quite into my coffee culture. I realized that, I actually injured myself, and that was the catalyst for it. I tore the ligaments in my ankle playing a game called Paddle, which is a lot of sort of former pro athletes now are into it, and it's obviously growing throughout the world. And I tore my ligaments, and I was lying there in bed, and I thought, you know what? And reading up more and more about, this carnivore and keto, how the algorithm works on Instagram, and these things come into your head, and I actually got on a call with a carnivore coach. Who I spoke to, and he said, look, let's jump on a call and have a chat. And I had about a 2-hour conversation with him and listened to his story. And it really resonated with me. And so I went on the journey, and he kind of, held my hand, so to speak, for the first sort of, 2 months. And it made a huge difference. I realized how bad it was. I was eating cheesecakes in the afternoon with a cup of tea, lazy eating. And that made a huge difference. And when I cut that all out, yes, it was tough, but I think the discipline was good to have because it gave me something to focus on. And I think secondly, I didn't have those crashes and started to feel, a lot better inside myself, definitely.
You said that you used antidepressants for 25 years, was it? So from teenager, obviously, to be on antidepressants, you have to be seeing the doctors on a regular basis. Did any one of them at any point in 25 years say, we need to look at what you eat? We need to change your diet. We need to do something nutritionally?
Never, no. I never had a conversation about that. I was always interested in diet because I was always trying to, get an extra edge. Sorry, Doc, you want to say something?
No, keep on going. I'm just this. I'm for the after.
Oh, right. Yeah, so the answer is no. But obviously I had a keen interest in diet. I mean, I was an athlete who wanted to be that next Tiger Woods, that was my dream. Living, eating, breathing, sleeping, elite performance, how do we get better? I mean, we had a dietitian who came and saw us, who put us on greens. There's a green substance. So they had us all drinking that. Then they had us having fish and vegetables for breakfast, which actually was obviously a lot better than the porridges and what have you that they were eating before that. So there was some improvement there when we stuck to it, but there was never any talk about nutrition. It angered me actually, because I saw the top people in London. I saw the top people here in South Africa. And I remember going in, and I think the part of the issue is that when you're young, there's a sort of condescending, when you walk in, you sort of already feel on the back foot, right? Because, you're coming up against someone who's highly qualified, and a professional in their industry. And I'm just a young sort of upstart in many ways who, has a heart and wants to go out and take on the world. So I guess when I came in with my problems, so to speak, I didn't feel listened to exactly. I think there was a new drug every time. And I thought, I actually, there was this, call me cynical or not, but I would sort of come out of those meetings going, this is an absolute joke. I mean, I could sit on that couch, wear a suit, and I like, what are they actually doing? They're just going, okay, right, okay, yeah, okay. Well, let's try you on X and maybe a little bit of Y, and let's see how we go for a month on that. I mean, and you're paying them £400 for a half an hour consult, and I was just going, this is unbelievable. This is the best job in the world. I mean, they're not doing anything. They're not looking at anything. They're not understanding me. They're just sort of pushing out a drug that is the drug of the moment, and off I go. And it takes months to get into that, and even longer to get off it. And I eventually just I got my drugs last year. I injured this ankle. I went on the diet, and within 1 month, I just grabbed these drugs and I literally put them down the toilet, and just said never again. And I'd rather, I don't want to say it on here, but I'd rather end up on the wrong side, not taking those drugs than taking them.
Where does the world of sports come in all of this? Because there's obviously part of the whole crowd and the community of you've got to play at all cost, and culture often is food that isn't so good for us, and then there's alcohol and sodas and everything else that goes with it. But it's sort of like buckle up and get out there and go play, despite the mental pain, the physical pain, the all pain, and we're going to wrap you up or drug you up and get out there. And I love sports. This is purely our whole culture is in some way this way. And I too had anxiety, depression. I'm going to use the word almost worthlessness. I felt less worthy, and I always looked up to others and never thought I could obtain any of that spot, and always worked hard. But I think between sodas and alcohol and all the grass and grain foods that caused all of my mental, emotional, and physical ailments, there is just our general sports community. And I'm a crazy Dodger fan, and love watching it, but no, there's some downsides to all of it.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think culturally, I think things have moved on a little bit. Let's be honest. I think we're in a very professional world right now. I think when I first started, and particularly for those who don't understand the game of cricket, it's probably not looked upon as being the most athletic sport. Certainly had a backdrop or a history of being more of a game that was sort of based around skill. But the game has obviously evolved commercially, and the demands on athletes now is very, very high. So when I first arrived, there was very much a culture of travel, drinking, and repeat. And so I think the hardest thing was to try and, on one hand, there was a sense of wanting belonging. I'm now a professional athlete. I want to be a part of this team. I want to fit in. And I'm not at a level yet where I can start dictating terms, and unfortunately, as I realized probably throughout my whole sporting cricketing career, in the various teams, I mean, that is a huge part of it. Right. And in many ways, I never really bought into that, because I couldn't care less if my teammate drank or didn't drink or partied or went to sleep early. I mean, it shouldn't make any difference, particularly professionally. And in terms of his belonging in the team, it should make absolutely no difference. For me, it's a professional world, and people must be themselves and be the individual they want to be. So I was very much a sort of sponsor of the individual and getting the most out of that person, because I think if we did that in a team culture, then fundamentally the team would be performing at a higher level. So I think there was that side of it, but I had no idea the relationship with food and my mental health. It wasn't really I didn't sit there going, oh, maybe it's the food, or maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. I never sort of made that huge link, because I always thought I ate well. I was an athlete. I ate well. I didn't drink. I hardly drank. So I found it at times, not that I got ostracized, but I made it harder for myself, because I walked quite a an individual line, you know, and I was quite clear about the lifestyle I wanted to live. I wanted good sleep. I didn't want to be drinking beers ad hoc. Yeah, sure, maybe after a massive victory or winning, you know, the Super Bowl or something like that, you know, you can go and have a few beers. But I think generally, so coming back to that, it was very difficult, and there was never a big, you know, the diet side of it was never pushed on us. You know what I mean? It was left to ourselves. And maybe that's because they were like, well, you're adults and, you know, you're professional athletes, so therefore go and make your own decisions. But there was a lot of other stuff pushed on us. And I look back and I think they got it all wrong. You know, some of the training methods, you know, would be in vogue for 3 years. And then suddenly there would be a whole shift towards another training method. And you think, well, hang on a minute, what happened to the guy who was pushing those training methods, and what's happened to my back over the last 4 years because I've been squatting 200 kgs in a sport where I should never have been doing that. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't know if I've answered the question, but I think that there's a lot of dynamics going on, and I think there's a lot of misinformation, information out there, as we all know, and I think trying to get through that and have, and I think the important thing is to probably stumble on a good, you know, sort of mentor. I think those that do tend to get lucky, and those that don't, you hear so many stories of talented athletes who you think, wow, what happened to Johnny? You know, Johnny was an exceptional player and he never made it. Why did he not make it? And actually, if you look deeply into that, they probably didn't have the guidance or the mentor. That was the only difference, you know.
I was reading a little bit of Salzberg's book, the relationship of alimentation and disease, and you know the diseases of which I shall briefly treat in the remaining chapters of this work have their primary cause in unhealthy alimentation, and also talks about thrombosis, blood clots, and fermentation. And there's a comment somewhere in here, I don't know where it is, you know, which is worse, the sugars, the alcohol, carbs or alcohol, but in fact, the carbohydrates in our gut ferment and make alcohol. So in fact, you may not be drinking alcohol, but a carb eater in general is making alcohol in our bowels, and so autologous alcohol syndrome or fermentation, which happens in our bodies, and so we may not think we're drinking it, but we're making it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, look, I mean that's interesting. That's fascinating to hear, and it doesn't surprise me. I think the big issue or the biggest thing that I've noticed is my gut health, because I had issues with bloating. I think I got a disease in India, you know, which was like a waterborne disease, which just killed me for about 3 years. But the bloating has been there from a young age, and I always sort of, you know, I tried these probiotics, I tried everything, and it absolutely killed me. And then obviously, you know, having done the sort of carnivore diet and cut out all that sort of stuff, it's amazing how, you know, what the turnaround's been.
And so what's your mission today, Nick? Tell us a little bit about your former self and then your current self.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what I have realized is the transition from elite sport to a normal life has been a challenge. I think, you know, it's been heard before, but you talk about identity, you talk about meaning, purpose, all these kind of things. You know, 1 minute you're playing for your country, representing your country, living a so-called dream, and within seconds or days or minutes, you're suddenly sitting in your bedroom and everything's kind of spinning, you know. And it's a very, you know, I would say, you know, visual reality in many ways, and getting over that has been has been a challenge. I think writing the book was quite helpful. I think therapeutic in many ways to kind of, you know, unravel my own journey, which was quite layered in many ways. I think having this grandfather who was you know, who played football as in soccer for Arsenal, which is one of the big Premier League teams, and he played cricket for England. So he was a real legend back in the 40s and 50s. So I think, you know, having that sort of picture of him above your sort of in your bedroom, I think was always a tough yardstick. And I think trying to separate myself from my own achievements to maybe that and what I'd hoped to achieve, I think has been a challenge in itself. I've done many different things. I'm quite a creative guy, so I've gone into photography and I enjoy my travel. I do a lot of media, TV commentary now for different cricket tournaments around the world. But I think the book for me and the ability to help other young players is something that I feel is a bit of a calling. I try and mentor and have mentored a few young professionals. The diet side of it is a difficult one in the sense I'm not somebody who wants to push, whether it be diet or religion or anything like that on an individual. I think it's much better when it sort of comes organically and they can sort of see the change in me and go, hey, so what are you doing at the moment? And I can sort of do it that way. So look, I think maybe commercializing the ability I have to mentor other players and speak. I've done a lot of speaking in London from a sports business perspective, but also on a mental health perspective. I think there's a real opportunity there to make a difference. And I think this dynamic now of the diet of eating, in this ketogenic sort of carnivore way has had a huge impact on me. And look, it might not be everyone. Some people are happy and living life and in a great way anyway, and maybe don't need to do this. But I think for me, and I'm sure many others, I know many others, it's made a huge impact on their lives. So I think it's about sort of thinking about how I can maybe take this forward and help people who are in need.
Do you have any particular books that you've sort of found really helpful? Obviously your own. I'm just curious if anyone else's books or stories that have kind of changed your direction in life.
I wouldn't say I've read many books at this stage. I would say I'm sort of, I would say I'm into a year of the carnivores and of this ketogenic diet. So I'm still very much, I'm humble enough to say I'm learning. And I thank you for being so open in your podcasts and on your content, which I've listened to a lot amongst many others. So I think for me, it's still trying to absorb as much information as I can before. I've always been reticent to go out there and tell people, hey, you must do this or you must be ketogenic until I've sort of proven it to myself, and I think it is still an early stage. I still have days where I feel anxious. It hasn't cured me, and I'd be lying if I said, I'm the finished article, everything's changed. My whole world is 100%. It isn't. But I would say if I look at, that paralyzing anxiety, that paralyzing brain fog where I just couldn't function, I would say that has gone. And when I stick to the diet, and sure, I've not been perfect. There's cravings come back every now and then, and I miss the odd cheesecake here and there. But the effect it has on me is, it's like, do you want to have that little bit of goodness and know that it's going to kind of affect you for the next week or so? But so I kind of say that's where I'm at. In terms of books, I read loads of, sort of a lot of athletes sort of stories, and I look back at many of them. I don't think they were particularly diet focused, but I think it was more about, I suppose, direction, purpose, and let's talk about having a goal, having a dream, and really having and being able to stick to that. And I spoke about having this mentor. I was very lucky to meet one, and I think my story changed. My real story changed when we sat down in a hotel, and I was this sort of talented athlete. I'd been told how wonderful I was going to be, and I was 20, 21 years old. I'd had a good start to my professional career, and I thought I should be playing, regularly in the first team, etc. And I was going through a little bit of lull, and he sat down with me and said, where are you at the moment? And I said, well, I should be playing in the team. And he said, well, here are your statistics, and you're not as good as you think you are. And I it was a bit of a dent to the ego, because I was like, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, here are your stats. And, in a game like cricket, stats don't lie. And that was the start of the journey, where he said, look, give me a call if you want to do some proper work. And I sort of went away a little bit disgruntled and thought, what does this guy know and what have you? And about 4 months later, I went and saw him, and we sat down, and in a year on from there, I ended up getting picked for my country. And the work that I put in, there was a lot of unlearning. It was almost like the analogy of having an onion. of taking off all those layers and getting down to the core and then putting new layers back on. And that was a whole different way. And I attached myself to breath work. I went and worked with the Tai Chi master. I did a lot of Bikram yoga at that stage, a lot of journaling, a lot of writing, and really looked at what my strengths were and where I was going and where the gap was in my profession and the opportunity. And we built that machine over the next 10 years. And so that's kind of my story in terms of my professional story, and probably what I'm most proud about, in terms of understanding that if you have a journey, if you have a goal, and you've got someone that you can trust and be really brutally honest with yourself and them, then I think you've got a chance. But I think the most important lesson for me was, where am I right now? Not where do I want to be tomorrow? Where are my heroes? Where am I right now? And I think if you can be honest with yourself there, then you've got a chance to move to the next stage. And once you get to the next stage, you be grateful and go, right, I've got a chance to go to the next one. And that was kind of how it was for me, Doc.
So the mind game, so certainly carnivore, ketovore, find some change, but it wasn't just the diet. There was a dig in and really ask questions, listen to others, and there's some other parts of this story that I think are really powerful, that you got to do the work.
Yeah, 100%. I would love to have had my time again and added this diet to it. I definitely became more disciplined with my diet, and that made a huge difference during this period. And there's no, it's funny how one thing changes. And, his analogy is, you can't walk onto a professional field in front of 50,000 people for your country and expect to show things like discipline, focus, patience, if you're not doing it every day in your life. You know what I mean? It doesn't work like that. So it starts in the bedroom, it starts in the kitchen, it starts waking up in the morning. And if you're displaying those every day in your life, then when you walk out there in front of 100,000 people or 50,000 people, then you've got a better chance of showing those attributes. You know what I mean? But don't think you can just turn that on one day like that, under pressure, when you haven't done it every single day of your life. So that was probably one of the biggest lessons. And I think just the deep honesty of, where am I right now? Where do I want to go? And then working out the work that needed to go in. In my word, there was a lot of work, but I had an understanding of what needed to be done. And in cricketing terms, or in sporting terms, there's a team. I had an attribute of being able to, I was quite defensive in some ways, and every team has, attacking players and defensive players. And that's what the great thing is about a team. You need both. And I realized that if I was going to play at that elite level, I needed to have a world-class defense. Because at the moment I had an okay defense, and okay wasn't good enough. So I had to then go and put that work together to have a world-class defense. And that when I built that, suddenly all the other things came in. I suddenly found myself being out there longer, and then the success came, and I started to revel in that. And that's kind of the journey.
Tell me about journaling and
Just lost you there, Doc. Sorry.
Journaling. Can you hear me? Am I muted? Hello? You got me? I can't. You're muted.
Can't hear you guys.
Yeah.
Oh no,
there.
I was on mute.
There we go.
I think Doc's also on mute.
Was it only me, or did everybody go out?
You got it, Nick?
Are we back on?
You got me, Nick? Can you hear me? Nope.
No. Oh shoot.
I can hear you.
Testing.
Can you hear me, Nick?
I can hear you, Doc. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. How about now?
Still can't hear.
All
How about
right.
me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
All right. What were you saying, Nick?
Just trying to think. Where did we get? Did you guys not hear the last bit?
I heard you.
You did?
I heard you.
Yeah, we can hear you. We just can't hear him.
Cool.
No, I can hear Dr. Kiltz, but
You can hear me.
I can hear Dr. Gill. Anyways, we were talking last few minutes about mindset, which is one of the things Dr. Kills loves to talk about, and how important that is. You were mentioning you needed to know where you were at so you could go where you
Yeah.
wanted to go. And if you don't know where you're coming from, it's difficult to decide how to get there, where you're going in the future. So, in the terms of this way of eating and changing your diet, mindset is also extremely important, because we all probably have doubts. What does your family think about your way of eating?
Yeah, I think that's quite an interesting question. I think, look, firstly, mindset is absolutely key. Look, as I said, when I met this mentor of mine, he's somebody I see as almost a triple PhD in elite performance. He understood what it took. He understood a lot of the coaching methods and what needed to happen for someone to move from position A to B. I think as a young athlete, I was hungry. I had the ambition. I wanted to be like my heroes on TV. But how to get there and what was the next step was something that was probably missing. I practiced as hard as anyone else. I was doing the right things, but it wasn't quality practice, and it didn't have a direction behind it. And when I met him, I spoke about the unlearning and looking at really sort of doing a lot of writing and really understanding where is it that I want to go and where was I right now, and where and the gaps that were missing in terms of my professional, both my technical, tactical, emotional, and physical as well. So we broke those all down into different categories, and we almost said, right, where do you think you are out of 10 as a physical specimen, as an athlete? And I said, I think I'm a sort of 7 out of 10. And you said, you're a 2. And I went, okay. And then technically, he said, how good do you think? Oh, well, everyone thinks I've got a really nice technique. I went, yes, 8. And he went, you're 3. And I went, okay. So you kind of get the picture. And I suppose from a journaling perspective, after every significant session I had with him, I then went away and did something called a learning loop, which was really interesting. So there were 6 key things that I had to write. And one of them was, what did you learn today? So I wrote down what I learned today. Could be anything. When I'm hungry, I don't perform as well. Or when I had a good night's sleep, I felt that I was able to focus much better today. Then it was difficulties you experienced. So I'd write down my difficulties of, I'm really low in energy or whatever it might be. And then it was solutions, the solutions I had. So, okay, let's have a good night's sleep. Then it was any surprises that came up for me. Wow, it was really cold in training today. Or, yeah, I found that it surprised me how dark it was and I couldn't see the ball that well or something. And then it was, how do I feel now? Just my exact feelings right now. And then the last one was, what do you want to do next? Which I thought was key. So it's kind of like logging everything in terms of really making sure that I really learned everything in the session and I journaled that. And then it was about, right, what do I want to do next? A, with this information, and B, do I want to go and have a nap? Do I want to go and eat? Do I want to get back in the nets and practice again? So that journaling process, I think, just helped the mind, be far more stringent and focused. And I knew that the work that I was doing and the preparation that I was doing was on a different level to other guys. I knew they weren't putting this work in, and that gave me confidence along the way.
And much of it is just show up.
Still
Be there.
not sure I can hear anyone.
I don't hear Ali. I think
Yeah.
you're muted.
My mic was specifically muted. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Why don't we take some of these questions while Dr. Kiltz is figuring out his audio? George,
And I do hear you, Dr. Kill, so I don't know what the problem is.
Yeah.
Alia, do you
I've got
hear
that
me?
question there. Should I crack on?
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
it definitely comes with mental pressure, and yes, I am friends with Marcus Trescothic. I played with him for 5 years. I actually in cricketing or baseball terms, I went out to bat with him, and we scored a lot of runs. In cricketing terms, is when you partner with someone and you bat with them. I partnered with him for 5 years, so I had a very deep insight into him and to his mental health and his struggles, because he wrote a quite a sort of groundbreaking book, or should I say, sort of autobiography on his own struggles with mental health. So I kind of understood what he was going through, and in many ways, because I had my own struggles, he was a real comfort. Just knowing that I had somebody in the changing room that understood mental health and that had also gone through his own challenges. So that was a lot of power to me. And obviously, he was an unbelievable player, a fantastic international cricketer for England, whose career was probably cut quite short because of mental health. And to be able to spend time with him and be open with him made me feel safer in the changing room. Because I think the other thing that Dr. Kiltz, you alluded to in terms of professional sport, there has been a stigma, attached to mental health. There's been, and you're in a room with a lot of alpha males, and there's a lot of competitive juices, and everyone's trying to put their best foot forward. And I think being able to be vulnerable in those situations definitely came with its challenges. I mean, you don't want to give anything away. You don't want to give the coach any insight into any weakness that you may have, because that could be the difference between being selected or not. So trying to hide that day in, day out in that sort of professional world was really difficult. So it was to have someone like him in that changing room, knowing that I could go and knock on his door in the hotel room at night and tell him that I was feeling, X, Y, or Z, and that I wasn't going to be judged, I think made a huge difference. It's tough to be human in that changing room. It's tough to be human, and I think there comes a point where you think, you know what, to hell with it. This is who I am. These are my struggles, and I'm going to live and own them. And it doesn't mean that I can't be successful. It doesn't mean because you have mental health struggles that you can't go on and achieve some amazing things, whether that be as an elite sportsman or businessman or whatever it is, And I think sometimes for me, having some of the struggles that I had, particularly in the latter stages of my career, it was so debilitating. I couldn't get out of bed till sort of 4 p.m. in the afternoon. I couldn't see the wood from the trees, and life didn't really seem worth it. I'd lost my dream. I was a shadow of the former athlete that I'd always envisaged myself being, and it was a very, very tough time. So but I think it's important you do own it. And look, I think there are people that will judge out there, but there are others now that seem to be more understanding. And I've always been open to, how do I fix this? How do I get better? Because it wasn't a case of trying to be a victim either. I didn't really want people feeling sorry for me. I wanted to be better. Something wasn't right, and I didn't need to go and speak to 100 healthcare practitioners or psychiatrists or psychologists. I could sit in my room and go, I don't feel good. And these drugs aren't working.
Right.
The questions, Daria?
Yeah. Let's see. Ketovore farm mom. Speaking of depression, Nick, how long did it take for depression to lift after pulling back on the carbs? I get depressed. I realize shortly within a few hours of carbohydrate cheats. It's scary.
Yeah, good question. I mean, I wouldn't have an answer to that sort of in terms of, I woke up one day. I think that the changes are pretty immediate. I mean, to sort of talk about long scale depression and some of the deeper issues, I'm not saying that carnivore treats all depression and it goes tomorrow. Absolutely not. I think everyone's issues are different. And look, it doesn't take away, work stress or financial pressure. And these are all the things that, I've struggled with simultaneously while coming towards the end of a career. So, and I'm still dealing with those now. But I think within a month, I think the fact that I had a focus that got me out of bed, the fact that there was an accountability, the fact that I didn't feel the high and the crash and this impending kind of doom where I, was just so tired that it didn't matter what conversation I was having. It was like, look, hold on, guys, let me go and have a nap for an hour and then I'll come back to you. I mean, that's kind of how I felt, and I just couldn't function. Those things went away. And I think now I'm on a sort of level playing field, should I call it, or I now am standing on more solid ground where, I can maybe tackle those things that, of course, everyone in daily life has to tackle. So I certainly haven't resolved those things, but I feel able to get up in the morning and go and train and go and exercise. Whereas before you'd have to wrench me out of bed and literally make me do it. That's how bad the sort of depression felt, and the heaviness, and obviously the impending anxiety as well.
Don't
All
we
right.
all suffer?
Nick, can you hear Dr. Kiltz?
I can't hear him, but I can see he's sort of saying one door closes and another opens, and yeah, pain pushes us all. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think everyone needs that turning point, needs that, needs something to give them a lift, and whether it be the carnivore diet or the keto diet or something. Look, I think the major thing for me, call it what you want, is getting rid of sugars and getting rid of those processed carbs and heavy carbs. I think made a huge difference. I don't care what you call it. It was just that was a big change. And I think, I'm a born South African, and as I don't know if you know, but we eat a lot of meat here in South Africa. It's
nice.
it's a staple diet. So having 3 ribeyes a day with a whole lot of butter is a very easy thing to do here. So yeah, I think it sort of goes hand in hand with it. And yeah, I've been very happy eating that diet. I think my body shape has changed, even though I never had a huge sort of issue with my body, but I just think that I've tightened up. I've lost that water retention, and just I feel like more of an athlete now. And I look back at my athletic days, and the lunches they used to give us, and I should have listened to myself more. I think maybe there's a comfort to eating that food. I have to say, for those who are thinking about it or listening, or who sort of have an inclination to try and start it, one of the biggest difficulties was the emotional disconnection, I would say. The cravings is one thing, not eating some sugar or not having that, that cheesecake, but I felt like I lost a best friend. I felt like it was the way of life that I had. Going for a coffee and having a cheesecake was very much a part of my life. And I'm not saying there's anything terribly wrong with that, but when I cut that cheesecake out and cut those carbs and those dinners and what have you, it does change your lifestyle. And that was emotionally quite difficult to get over. And I still think I still deal with it at times because it's a nice part of life. But I found other ways to kind of still sort of get a fix of going for a coffee and what have you, but you don't necessarily need that cheesecake every time. But it's like, no, just you guys have it, I'm okay.
That's right. You sound like me. I was all about the cheesecake and coffee.
Really
Yeah.
Any other questions?
There is what's harder to stop, carbs or alcohol?
Look, for me, definitely carbs. That probably makes me sound like quite a boring ex-professional sportsman, doesn't it? Yeah, I've never been a big drinker. I think that was something that I was quite good at sort of staying away from. I would say that the carbs has probably been bigger for me. I mean, I wouldn't say that I never drink. I think I've had a couple of tequilas and soda the other night, but I very rarely drink. And as I said, if it's a big evening and a good night, then I've still got to live my life and what have you. But alcohol's never been a big thing for me, and I've for whatever reason sort of managed to abstain from that, even when socially it's been difficult. But I always kind of felt that it would make me feel quite depressed and suboptimal the next day, and I just I kind of would go, what, I'm not going to have this drink. So yeah.
Okay, Nick, I want to be like respectful of your time. I know you said you have 50
It's all right.
minutes. And we got
It's all
1
right.
minute
Yeah.
left.
Well, I can do another. If you want to keep me on for another 5 minutes, I'm good. But
Okay,
it's up to you.
let's see. Let's see. I think that all the same similar questions. Let's see. It was hard for the first few years with alcohol, but I think this is literally the same. But will carbs be as hard? That's basically the same question.
Yeah, I think so. I think pretty much.
Yeah. Cool.
My current workout, I try and work out every day. I try not to be too obsessed by working out, in the sense that I try and have a healthy relationship with it. But I think I wake up in the morning and try and do something, whether that's like I've been quite into my Pilates for years. So that's the sort of staple diet, twice a week, I would say. Even if I do a 10-minute sort of session on YouTube or something on the floor, it just gets the body going. We're blessed here in Cape Town. We've got very cold water, and we've got a lot of saunas that are now placed on the various beaches. So I've got into,
Wow.
and I sort of did it when I was there before the summer in the UK, but got into a routine of trying to get down, do some exercise, whether I go for a 5K run, do some hill sprints, or I try and do whole body training. So dumbbells, they work the whole body. So like 15, 20 minutes, work the whole system, straight in the cold water for 5 minutes, that sort of cold plunge. It's about 6, 7, 8 degrees, and then into the sauna, have another swim, end on a cold plunge, have a shower, and then either fast or have a coffee. So that's kind of my morning routine, and I sort of feel like that's absolutely integral to the rest of my day and how things have been going. I've got to make sure I do something every day just to keep me ticking over.
Right. Daily get-ups.
Yeah, daily get-ups like that. 100%.
This is so interesting because I can hear Dr. Hiltz.
Yeah.
Sometimes, who knows? It happens sometimes. This stuff happens. Dr. Kiltz, do you want to put any last question for Nick into the chat? Oh, where do we follow you? On Instagram, right?
Yeah, Instagram, at nick.compton. Compton, like the hood in LA. Actually, you'll laugh. Well, you won't laugh, but I actually was there in 2011. And I'll finish with this story. Actually, this will be good for your listeners back in America. But I was in New York City after a cricket season. Had a long 6-month season. Was tired. Went to visit a friend in New York City, and I tweeted something about being in New York. And the Compton Cricket Club, believe it or not, tweeted me back and said, "Hey Nick, good to see you over here. Come and visit us sometime." And I thought, the Compton Cricket Club, who the hell are these guys? You know what I mean? Anyway, so I tweeted them back.
You thought they were
Cut a long
fans?
story short. Yeah, so cut a long story short, I got on a Zoom call with an ex-British lady who had spent her whole life in Hollywood. She was very close to Sam Peckinpah, the famous director in LA. And she had worked over there for years, and she said she'd built this cricket team in the hood of LA. You wouldn't believe it or not. And which they used to take homeless kids off the streets. And because cricket has a gentlemanly sort of nature to it, she built this team in the hood of Compton, and sort of they came on tour to England. They played against my grandfather, who put a team together, who was also Dennis Compton. That was his name. So she phoned Dennis quite famously and said, "Hi Dennis, it's Katie Haber here from Hollywood. We've got the Compton Cricket Club." And he said, "Oh, Katie, great to hear from you, and so glad that you could name your cricket team after us," after him, not knowing that there was something bigger than him out there. But I went over and met these guys, and I went and coached them and did a little documentary, which I could actually send you, in the hood of Compton.
Yeah,
it was an
amazing
story. So I've spent a lot of time there teaching cricket in Compton and downtown LA, where it all started. And it was an amazing story, and made some really good friends out there. So we'd love to get back to LA. Loved it. Had a great time out there. And hopefully my story can sort of inspire a few young Americans, not only to play cricket, and it's a big sport out there. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of cricket in America. So yeah, and it was really good to be on with you guys.
Awesome. Awesome. I just will pop this question up. Great interview. I love it. Another fellow South African from Johannesburg. We have the best beef. I'm so excited to hear that. Here, all the best. Enjoy cold waters of Cape Town. That's all that we miss here. There we go.
Yeah, thanks, Nassim. That's cool. That's great. Love that.
All
Well,
right. Well, yeah.
Thank you for being here this morning, Nick.
No, pleasure, guys. Thank you.
All right, everybody. I got to do the goodbye, Nick.
The
You're welcome
guys.
to leave, Nick, if you need to. I need to do our giveaway.
I got to
Cheers,
run
guys.
too. I'm
Okay.
going to Nashville, Houston, Vegas today.
Whoa.
And then I'm meeting with, who am I with tomorrow?
Dave Feldman.
Dave Feldman tomorrow. And,
That's right.
and it's going to be great. So I got to send me all the Q's and A's and all that stuff. Nick's amazing. Thank you to him. And just thank you to everyone for being here, by the way. And most of all, thank you to Dr. Nelson and Alia for keeping churning kilts. They wind them up and push them out. As long as they give them a parachute when they push them out of the plane.
Okay, bye, Dr. Kilts. We can handle the giveaway.
All right. Love you guys. Love you guys.
Have a great day.
All right. All right.
Stevie Wood, congratulations. Email me. Cool. Awesome. Alia at drkilts.com. We will talk soon. And I will get you a gift. There you go. All right, everybody. It's been a beautiful morning. If you are not a member of the KMT, please sign up for free, and we will see you tonight at our Zoom call. Utilize
5:30
this time.
p.m. Eastern Time.
Exactly. You can utilize this time. You have Dr. Nelson captive, and he will answer your questions. Bye.
And All Guy Carnivore at 7.
At 7 and 3 minutes. All right. Well, should we let them just transfer over to Dr.
Yeah. Sounds good to me.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day.